Hello, Janice.
Hello, Anthony.
Today we're going to talk about why is being an executor difficult, the statistics. So we often warn that being an executor is very difficult, especially for sort of an amateur or family member or non-professional. And today we'll share some hard data, some surveys and statistics to put some numbers on why exactly it is so difficult.
So we will discuss today, is being an executor difficult? How much time does it take to be an executor? And how long do estates take to settle?
Very good. All right, let's just jump right in. Number one, is being an executor difficult? Well,
Sorry.
yeah, I know, right? Well, from the perspective of, we have our own opinion and we do this all the time, but from the perspective of sort of family members and non-professionals, based on surveys, the perceived difficulty of serving as executor is that, they don't feel that anything is particularly easy or particularly hard to understand. However, the actual performance of their duties is pretty difficult, right? So what that means is, if I'm understanding this survey correctly, non-professional executors, I get what I'm supposed to do. I can kind of wrap my head around it.
Makes sense, when you're looking at the how-to books.
Right. But the grind of doing it is what really gets me.
Right.
I can relate to that because for the tough legal and tax issues, they'll probably, rely on their counsel or CPA. But for the everyday tasks, it seems like, close that bank account.
Right.
Sounds like something like, I understand it. It's not difficult to comprehend what I need to do, but.
or gather maybe a financial document, which sounds pretty easy, right? Yep. May take you 3 letters, 4 trips to the bank, right? Real life story.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like, I've Googled the 800 number before. Like, what's the big deal?
Right.
Until you actually go about trying to do it.
Have you ever sat on hold with a 1-800 number for 30 minutes as you wait to find out they can't help you and you have to go to a bank? It does sound like it should be really easy, but...
And then after all that, you get this is an estate? Oh, I have to transfer you to somebody else.
I have to transfer you. Oh, do you have this, in this document? Yes. Okay, well, we need a whole nother copy.
So yeah, that totally makes sense that, understanding what needs to be done sounds easy enough, but then actually getting it done is a different ball of wax.
Right.
And again, under the umbrella of is being an executor difficult, here's some statistics. So of folks who actually, of family members and non-professionals who actually served as executor, they were asked which of the following was the most difficult part of serving as an executor or trustee of an estate. And the highest ranked number 1 was the commitment of time required. So it is a grind. I keep saying that, but it is absolutely a time-sucking grind.
Yes.
Number 2 was having sufficient legal and financial knowledge. And I can attest to this from our estates. It's one thing to decide, okay, we're going to sell this house, we're going to close this account. But anytime there's a dicey decision, there's a lot of risk management going on. Right. And what that means is the executor doesn't want to make the wrong decision and have either angry heirs or suing heirs.
Right.
Who are mad later on. And I believe that's what this falls under, having sufficient legal and financial knowledge. I don't think that folks are worried about understanding what an IRA is or understanding what a bank account is. It's understanding if I do this, if I make this financial decision, what can happen to me?
Yes. Could I get in trouble? Could I get sued? Could I do something wrong?
Totally. The next most difficult part of serving as executor, according to those surveyed, was filing the tax returns. Okay. I was a little surprised that this was so high up, only because I didn't think people kind of understood this. But I guess anyone who's gone through being an executor has seen the light and knows what a pain this is. Yes, so everyone has, either for their individual taxes, you probably have a CPA or you probably use TurboTax. And you're like, what's the big deal?
However,
when you're dealing with someone who's passed, you may be in a position where you're filing the past 3 tax returns or even the past 6 tax returns.
Right.
All right. And when you check that box that says this is for somebody who's passed away, the IRS, they take out their magnifying glass and their microscope and they want to make sure they get every last cent before this is wrapped up because that's it. This is their last shot at getting their money from you.
Right.
Yeah. And that's just the decedent's 1040s. Then you also have a 1041, which is the estate income tax return. And all of these returns, you have to wait till you get something called a closing letter, right? That's or a no audit letter. That's a release where the IRS says, okay, we're satisfied with what, with the numbers here and what you've paid. So we will never come after you, Mr. or Miss Executor. We will never come after you personally. Because if you don't have that letter and then you say, okay, I'm not too worried about this. I'm going to give, I'm going to distribute the money to the nephews. And the IRS comes by later saying, oh, you owe us another $5,000. Who do you think has to pay that $5,000?
Yep. Good luck getting that back.
And lastly, on the taxes, Janice, how long does it take to get one of those closing letters?
Oh, that's my favorite question. You would think it wouldn't be too long, but we're up to, in some cases, a year.
Yeah.
A year, I would say, is about the average now. That started about, what do you think, like 2 years ago?
Yeah.
It went from maybe 3-6 months and 6 to 9 months, and now we're at 9 plus. And then you throw in our recent worldly events.
Yeah.
You're looking at over a year before you get that letter. And
I know it's frustrating to wait, but you got to wait unless you want to bear the risk
waiting.
of the IRS tapping you in the shoulder in a couple of weeks.
Yes. Yep. And it's not just one estate; it's all of them. This is generally what is going on with the IRS now.
Yep. And then the last part of serving as an executor that people find difficult is managing disagreement among the heirs. So, I think what most people, I think they approach this thinking, I get that, I've heard the stories, but my family's different.
Right. But
every family that goes through death and money and conflict, the risk is just amplified. This is not your normal situation. This isn't just Thanksgiving dinner.
Right. Your emotions are way out of whack, right? You've got so many things going on here. The passing alone is, emotional, stressful. And then you've got to throw in all the other stuff. Nobody's thinking like they were a couple years prior when everything was fine.
And it's so funny. This might be false memory, but it feels like every client that says, oh, my family gets along great, we won't have a problem. It seems like those are the ones that have the most problems.
They do. I think at this point when we hear that, we just go, oh, boy.
But everyone, for the most part, people, figure it out and get along at the end for the most part. But, it's a bumpy road sometimes.
There is. There's always and even just the thought of that it may occur can also be stressful for an executor, right? Yep. Even if everyone's totally fine, there's that, you have to keep kind of the peace, right? The peacemaker. Yeah,
being on guard when you want to just hang out with your family, that can be annoying and stressful.
Yes. Thanksgiving dinner does change, especially if you are an executor in the family.
Yeah. And you want to just catch up about football and kids' school, but the first question everyone asks you is, so when's the money coming out?
Right, exactly. Yep.
All right, so let's move on to the next subsection. How much time does it take to be an executor? So we did point out that the number one perceived difficulty is not difficulty in understanding, but how much of a time grind it is. So let's put a number on that. On average, and I actually think this is low, but on average, serving as an executor takes 570 hours. Okay? 570 hours. I want to just put some context on what that number means. All right? You can think of that as just 570 hours. You can also think of that as being an executor takes 71 full 8-hour workdays. So if you're the one raising your hand saying, yeah, I'll be the executor for grandma's estate, are you prepared to take 71 days off of work?
Days off of work, days away from the family, days
or
away
71 of your weekends,
household.
71 of your weekend days, yeah. You could also think of it as 14 full 40-hour work weeks. Being an executor is the equivalent of 14 full 40-hour work weeks. If I'm getting this right, that's a quarter. That is one quarter of your work year. I guess if you're a teacher, maybe you can do the summer or something like that. But
maybe. Well, you know what? Even then, they're just preparing for the next year.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's over 3 months of work, and the question is it worth it? I mean, you can try to make it happen on the weekends and evenings, or you're almost definitely going to have to take days off of work. So is it worth it to deal with that juggling? loss of income possibly, is it worth it? You should need to figure that out for your own personal situation. All right, lastly, so we pointed out it takes 570 hours, but how long do estates take to settle? How long, over what period of time is that 570 hours spread out over? On average, it looks like it's on average 16 months, over about a year and a half.
That's about right. If I would say that's minimum.
Yeah, I think these
anymore with the IRS.
I think these are nationwide estates, and I don't think they and I do think these estates skew to the simpler estates, at least on this survey. Well, I also want to point out that over that 16 months, the hardest work is often compressed into little spurts of like just franticness, and then with long gaps of kind of idleness in between. Does that sound right to you?
It does. It's what I was saying earlier about the bank. Like you think I've got to get all these documents from a bank, but it's often we need it, in a few weeks, and they have to spend quite a few time gathering from the bank, going to the bank, but it's all happening real quick. Yeah. And then there's like a lull, right? Yeah. And then it's time you gear up for the next thing. Yeah.
And as Janice was saying before, the 16 months, I actually think the average would be much not much, but longer than that. I try to set realistic expectations. I know a lot of clients want to hear something different, like, oh, you'll be done in a couple months, only to have it. I like to set realistic expectations, not tell you what you want to hear.
Exactly. And I would rather having a number in mind, thinking 16 months, and if you get lucky, it's done in 14 months. Yeah. Great. Yeah. But I'd rather know that than you say 7 and then it's actually 14.
So that's it. I hope these numbers help you understand with a realistic perspective what it takes to be an executor. And if that is something that you can and think you can handle, go for it. I just want you going in with your eyes open. But if it sounds as horrible as it can be, maybe you want to consider either hiring a professional or just finding another friend or family member who is better suited for what we just described.
Absolutely. And if you want to read more, check out Anthony's book, How to Hire an Executor. Gives you all of what we talked about today, but in much more detail and what to expect. Available Amazon and your website.
Very good. Thank you, Janice, as always. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Talk soon.
Talk soon.